decades. Wasn't Iraq invaded under similar pretexts? And after all these years, did they ever find chemical weapons? Our perspective is not that we are in a full-scale war. Rather, our stance is one of lawful defense. We hope the United States avoids making such a mistake. But should tensions rise, our responses will certainly escalate in proportion. We have always said, do not speak to the Iranian people in the language of threats. Iran is an ancient civilization, far older than many of the nations now making statements. We have a deep-rooted heritage, and they must recognize they are addressing a great nation. What is crucial here is that if they make a mistake, we will undoubtedly defend ourselves, and we will carry out whatever is rightfully ours. We sincerely hope they do not make such a misstep.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has addressed the crisis between Iran and Israel, and he said that Moscow wasn't prepared to broker a deal, but is ready to offer possible solutions.
We are in no way seeking mediation. We are simply offering ideas. And if they are attractive to both sides, we will be only too happy about that. But I repeat, we are in contact with Israel. As you know, I recently spoke with Prime Minister Mr. Netanyahu and with the President of Iran and with the President of the United States, who are, of course, directly involved in all these processes. I presented them with my vision, a possible move forward in the direction of resolving the situation.
Right, well, Yulia Shapovalova has more from St. Petersburg.
Putin has said that Russia will not contribute to the conflict between Iran and Israel militarily, but he's constantly in contact with all the parties involved in the conflict and asked Netanyahu and Trump to ensure security for the Russian personnel at the Bushehr nuclear power plant, saying that Russia is not evacuating its staff from there. Everyone is concerned about the safety of Iran's Bushehr nuclear power plant in light of possible Israeli strikes. The Russian side has warned against any attacks on Iranian nuclear facilities, saying they are unacceptable, while the head of Russia's Rosatom Corporation, which provides technological assistance to the Bushehr nuclear power plant, whose Russian employees work at the plant, he has said that the technological safety of the plant is fully ensured. It's protected from earthquakes, from power outages, from operator errors, even though, according to him, the Iranians are an absolutely professional team. But the station is not designed to withstand a direct missile strike. Therefore, the Rosatom chief expressed hope that the Israeli leadership and military officials understand the consequences of any possible attacks. Yulia Shapovalova, Al Jazeera, St. Petersburg.
Right, well, still ahead on Al Jazeera. How immigration raids on California's farms threaten to wreak havoc with production.
Well, the warm wet has disappeared from the Atlantic states of the US. There's still some rain you'll notice through Ontario, but have a look at this. This is the middle of June now, and the temperature's dropped down to 11 in Calgary. There's visible snow up in the mountains of Alberta. So, a windy day and a rainy day on Saturday. It slowly warms up, but the average is 20 in Calgary, and that cold air's disappearing south into Montana, Idaho. Disappointing, surprising maybe. Compared with the rest, which is pretty fine and warm. Even in the southwest, it's not record-breaking, but pretty hot, so huge contrast. Do you remember yesterday the hurricane off the coast of Mexico? Spot it now. It disappeared rapidly, so it has allowed a lot of moisture to come through, and Mexico's seeing rain when normally you would not see rain for both Saturday and Sunday. And there's more rain likely to come into Costa Rica, Nicaragua and Honduras and the Yucatan Peninsula. Some big showers around the Cayman Islands and Cuba and possibly Jamaica, but drier in the smaller islands, I think, for the most part. The seasonal rains in South America have been very heavy just recently in southeast Brazil. They've gone offshore now. Indeed, that looks particularly dry. And at the same time, of course, as everything shoves in that direction, the snow rolling up the Chilean Andes.
Is the United States slowly but surely losing its place as the world leader in research and innovation? Is there any hope for U.S. pressure to end Israel's policy of starvation and killing in Gaza? How is America changing? And where is it heading?
A quizzical look at U.S. politics, the bottom line. Bold and untold stories from Asia and the Pacific on Al Jazeera.
Welcome back. You're watching Al Jazeera, and here's a reminder of our top stories this hour. Iranian officials say that 2 people have been killed in an Israeli attack on the city of Qom, that's just south of Tehran. The Israeli military says it's striking missile storage and launch infrastructure. Meanwhile, there have been several explosions in the skies above Israel's capital, Tel Aviv, as Tehran sends another wave of missiles. The conflict between Iran and Israel is now entering its second week. US President Donald Trump has again insisted that Iran is close to developing a nuclear weapon and dismissed intelligence presented by his own spy chief. Right, well, before this most recent conflict started, Iran's economy was buckling under the weight of Western sanctions. Rising inflation and a collapsing currency have made everyday life difficult for Iranians and have some people wondering if the country can afford a prolonged conflict. Riley Carlson has this report.
Lines are getting longer at Tehran's grocery stores and gas stations. Non-essential shops are closing. Struggling for years under Iran's stifled economy means not everyone is able to heed the threats to leave the capital.
How could we leave? Some people might have a lot of savings or be in a good financial position. Maybe they can leave, but not for us. Personally, I don't think we're going anywhere.
Near total internet blackouts have been reported. The stock exchange is closed until Sunday, an effort to ride out the volatility of a week of conflict. The government says its refineries, critical to its petroleum output, are still operational. Tehran has threatened to close its side of the Strait of Hormuz if things escalate further, but experts say that would also hurt Iran.
That option is not ideal. It's the lifeline of Iran and its neighbor. They don't want to go to that direction. But if Iran is to be destabilized to a bigger extent, and we don't know what comes next, then I think that's a doomsday scenario.
Iran's struggling economy has been plagued by annual inflation near 40% and a soaring cost of living. Now Iranians have to survive not just sanctions, but a conflict that shows no signs of letting up. Riley Carlson, Al Jazeera.
Right, well, Neda Habibi is a professor and specialist in Middle East economics at Brandeis University in Massachusetts and joins me live now from Boston. Mr. Neda, Iran's economy is barely holding together. Can you give us a sense of why that is? And also, where is its ranking economically throughout the globe?
Sure. Well, the economy has been suffering under severe economic sanctions for several decades, especially after 2012. And more recently, with the threat that President Trump made about military attack against Iran, which was about 3 months ago, the uncertainty and fear of military attack has also had an very negative impact on economy because it puts all investments and all major economic decisions on hold. Your reporter from Tehran explained the day-to-day experience of the people under these circumstances, severe inflation, but also the decline in the standard of living in recent years, which has been documented and reported even by the economists that are affiliated with the government, openly warning that the poverty and declining standard of living is so severe that it might cause socioeconomic instability in the country.
Yeah, and Mr. Nader Habibi, how is this war, a conflict that we're seeing, likely to affect the global economy? Because it doesn't just affect the two countries involved.
Right. But so far, the impact has not been significant. And we can see this in the reaction of the global oil market and also the financial markets in the past 7-8 days. There is fear that if the conflict is spread to the Persian Gulf, to the Strait of Hormuz, it might have a more severe impact on the oil market by disrupting the supply of oil. Iran has not moved in the direction of focusing on the region in terms of targeting any sites or economic assets in the region.
Right.
And it appears that Israel is also reluctant to attack Iran's export capacity for crude oil.
You just mentioned the Straits of Hormuz. Can you explain to our audience the importance of that strait? Because it's critical not just to the country, but for oil on the planet, for most countries.
Correct. About 20% of the global oil supply goes through the Strait of Hormuz. Therefore, it is very sensitive. Of course, Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates have established east-west pipelines to the Red Sea and the Gulf of Oman in the case that there was a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Nevertheless, it is going to have an impact if it is blocked by any military action by Iran.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nader Habibi in Boston.
You're welcome.
Now, dozens of Palestinians seeking food have again been killed by Israeli forces in Gaza. At least 82 Palestinians have been killed throughout the Strip on Friday in different attacks. Funerals have already been held for many of the victims. Hani Mahmoud has this report from Gaza City.
All of these attacks are already causing further civilian casualties, pushing people into further internal and forced displacement, and of course leaving behind trails of devastation and destruction. And as of this moment, many of the enforced evacuation orders by the Israeli military are being reissued one more time, just pushing people and cramming them in a small part of the western part of Gaza City. We're talking about the entire northern part of the Strip, including the city of Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia, and part of Jabalia. A major part of Jabalia city and Jabalia refugee camp residents have been pushed into the internal and forced displacement, all here in the western part of Gaza City. Once again, one would have imagined that the tension between Iran and Israel would have brought a respite for Gazans across the Strip, but contrary, what we're seeing on the ground is a significant increase of these air attacks that are already causing further civilian casualties and serve the tension between Iran and Israel, serve, of course, as many people have already expressed, that as a distraction from the ongoing machine of killings that have been targeting people throughout the past days and since the eruption of exchange of fire between these two countries. What worries people the most right now is that the Israeli military is taking advantage of this distraction and commit more massacres and kill more Palestinians. As of this moment, we're seeing Palestinians dying at a record number, and we can count as many as a lot of them due either at the distribution centers or inside their tents or simply walking in the streets between the displacement sites and the streets. Hani Mahmoud, Al Jazeera from Gaza City, Palestine.
Pro-Palestinian activist and Columbia University graduate Mahmoud Khalil has been released from immigration detention. The release comes after a judge ruled Khalil, who's a legal U.S. resident, is a flight risk and hasn't been accused of a crime. Khalil was arrested in March after the Trump administration argued his on-campus activism for Gaza undermined U.S. foreign policy. Sahar Aziz is a distinguished professor at Rutgers University Law School and a former senior advisor on civil rights at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And she explains the next legal steps in this case.
Well, in federal district court, there is the right to appeal to the losing party. In this case, it would be the government. So they will appeal it to the Third Circuit. And it's unlikely that the Third Circuit will overrule the federal district judge unless there is some new evidence that arises, but it is possible. And then they could also appeal it to the Supreme Court, but again, the Supreme Court doesn't take every case or accept every case where there's a request for it to review, and this doesn't seem like one that would, because it's really a procedural matter. So if the government loses on appeal, then Mahmoud Khalil will be released on bond, on bail, and he will proceed to challenge the deportation proceedings in immigration court, and he will also proceed to file his own civil suit alleging that his First Amendment rights were violated by virtue of his unlawful arrest and unlawful detention.
Activists have broken into Britain's largest Royal Air Force base and damaged 2 military aircrafts. Footage posted online by Palestinian Action shows a protester riding an electric scooter and spraying red paint on a plane. The group says it's opposed to the UK's support for Israel and its war on Gaza. The Ministry of Defence has condemned the incident and said it's investigating the security breach. Now, US President Donald Trump has extended the deadline to ban the social media app TikTok for a third time. Trump signed an executive order extending the deadline, despite a law that mandates the sale or shutdown of the app, which is owned by a Chinese company, ByteDance. The future of the app in the United States remains uncertain at a time when both countries are involved in extensive trade discussions. US Vice President J.D. Vance has criticized state and local officials during his visit to Los Angeles. Vance accused the governor of California and the mayor of Los Angeles of inciting unrest. Earlier this month, the federal government deployed National Guard and Marines to protect federal buildings from protesters against immigration raids. And there have been similar raids in California's agricultural heartland that haven't been seen for the last 15 years. But that changed this last week as the Trump administration increased attempts to deport undocumented immigrants. Teresa Bow reports from Ventura County.
Ventura County, California, known for its fertile soil and the diverse crops that come from it. It's also one of the places where the latest round of immigration raids have taken place. Ricardo, which is not his real name, is a father of 4. He has been living in the United States for 15 years.
We are not going to work every day because we know the raids could happen. I want to tell the President of the United States that it's not fair what they are doing. People come here to work. We are not criminals, like he says.
Undocumented immigrants are a crucial labor force in Ventura County. California produces more than a third of the country's vegetables and more than 3/4 of its fruits and nuts.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents have been carrying raids all around this area where undocumented immigrants come to work by picking up tomatoes, strawberries, and other vegetables. And that's why many people have stopped coming to work because they're terrified of being detained.
Lack of workforce is a concern for farmers in the area. In fact, President Donald Trump acknowledged on social media that the aggressive immigration raids are having an impact on the farming sector. Juvenal Solano is part of a broader rapid response network that offers support and counsel for workers targeted by immigration raids. He says they have managed to warn people to stay off the fields when ICE agents are spotted.
We have lawyers, we have volunteers that are helping to get workers home or pick them up when federal agents are around. But this has brought chaos into the communities.
Most of the workers here are from Mexico, and many are part of indigenous communities. Like David, not his real name, who came to the United States when he was 16 years old.
But now we are not making the money we used to. Sometimes we try to stay in the house for a few days and come out to earn some money. We are paid by the hour, and sometimes it depends on how much fruit we can pick.
Trump's hardline immigration policy is having an impact on businesses and the immigrants who have been working here for years. That's why there are growing calls across the state for the raids to stop. Teresa Bo, Al Jazeera, Ventura County.
All right, well, that's it from me, Sarah Khairat, and you'll find more information on our website, aljazeera.com. 101 East is next.
She was the world's longest-serving female leader, hailed internationally for lifting millions out of poverty. Foreign media even dubbed her the mother of humanity. But to many Bangladeshis, Sheikh Hasina was a mother of evil.
She turned into a monster. I think she's a psychopath.
Sheikh Hasina is a zombie.
Her regime stands accused of stealing hundreds of billions of dollars from this impoverished country. Her security forces allegedly kidnapped and executed thousands.
Every night I was mentally prepared that I'll not see another day.
In July 2024, students rose against her, finally storming the residence where she ruled Bangladesh like an absolute monarch. She fled in a helicopter and escaped to India. Today, the once sumptuous residence of Sheikh Hasina is in ruins, along with her reputation. In this two-part report for 101 East, we're going to look at how a leader once hailed as an icon of democracy became someone people here call a monster. And we'll ask, can Bangladesh rise again from the wreckage of her rule? For any outsider, the capital Dhaka is an assault on the senses. More than 20 million people live in this noisy, pulsating, gridlock city. Dhaka University is as close as you'll get to a quiet oasis, a place to study, to think, and to sometimes change history. Okay, the famous student leaders, how are you? Thank you for meeting us. I've come here to meet 4 of the students who took on a dictatorship and won. Mitu Akhter, Abdul Kader, Mira and Rifat Rashid braved weeks of gunfire from security forces that killed hundreds of protesters. So you all saw friends killed around here?
Yeah, there is a lot of people killed in this movement, and there was the terrible experience.
The campaign they fought is now etched in murals around the university. Unarmed idealists facing bullets and armoured combat vehicles in hope of a better future.
আমার ফ্যামিলি বিশ্বাস করেছিল আমি আসলে মারা গেছি, তারা জাস্ট আমার লাশটা চাচ্ছিল, কিন্তু আমরা আসলে কিন্তু আন্দোলনটাকে ফ্রন্টের দিকে এগিয়ে নিয়ে গেছি।
It started with simple protests over a government quota system, which students believed the regime was using to reserve jobs for its supporters. But after mass arrests and mass killings, it turned into a nationwide uprising to oust Sheikh Hasina.
আমাদের আর পিছে ফিরোর মানে তাকানোর কোনো সুযোগ নেই। যদি আমরা বাসি আমরা হচ্ছে কি এই যে প্যাসেজকে খেদানো স্যার আমাদের আর কোনো ওয়ে নাই।
I just know one thing, that I have to survive, I have to achieve peace, I have to achieve the equal rights. I'm fighting for this, right?
For most of their lives, Sheikh Hasina had been their only ruler. Embraced by world leaders, she revelled in the moniker of Asia's Iron Lady. determined to drag her country from poverty and bring equality to women. At least that was the image her regime created. By 2024, much of Bangladesh's Gen Z had a different view.
She is the mother of President Sheikh Hasina.
But to many in their parents' generation, Sheikh Hasina had been a tragic heroine. Her father was Bangladesh's founding president, Mujibur Rahman. He came to power in 1971, leading a war of independence from Pakistan. 4 years later, while Sheikh Hasina was visiting Europe, he was murdered in a military coup. The rebel soldiers also slaughtered most of her family.
My father, the then president, was brutally murdered. Not only him, my mother, my 3 brothers, my 2 sister-in-laws, my uncle, altogether 18 members were killed. And then the power was captured by the military dictator.
After 6 years of exile in India, she returned to fight for democracy, leading her father's Awami League party. In 1996, at the age of 48, she was elected to her first term as Prime Minister.
I feel it's the people's victory. People fought for their voting right.
But from the outset, this professed Democrat had little tolerance of opposition, something many attribute to the murder of her family.
It must have been the most incredible, horrifying psychological trauma for Sheikh Hasina to have experienced the massacre of their closest family members. It would be difficult to not have a very heightened consciousness of your own insecurity.
Sarah Hussain is a human rights lawyer whose father was once a close comrade of Sheikh Hasina's father.
Do you think it did lead her to see all opposition in the same terms as the people who killed her family, as traitors, as evil, as anti-Bangladesh?
Exactly, yes. That explains in a way why she went from being someone who was very much a survivor of a human rights violation to someone who became an authoritarian who then perpetrated gross violations and with impunity and allowed others to do that.
In her second term as Prime Minister, security forces were locking up opposition figures without trial. Among them, a popular official with the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, Sajidul Islam Sumon. In December 2013, eyewitnesses say he and 5 friends were taken by authorities and never seen again.
They were not criminals. They were activists, strong organizers for opposition party.
Sajidul's sister, Sanjida Islam Tulay, is haunted by the day he disappeared.
I was thinking why I was not there to stop the car, why I could not save him then. So that was killing me always inside, every day from then. I know for sure if it was happened to me, my brother would have saved me.
Her mother, Hazera Khatun, went to the authorities every day for 2 years pleading for information. They told her nothing.
কেন নিল কি দোষ আমার ছেলের আমার ছেলে নাই আমি কি করব পয়সা থেকে
After Sheikh Hasina won the 2014 election, the number of reported disappearances skyrocketed. Sanjida and her mother began a support group for families of the missing. They started with 8 families. Now there are more than 1,000.
Every day, every night, they pray for their son, for their husbands, for their fathers' return.
Evolving.
We're all in this together.
From the energy sector. Wow, look at
Pixels.
that. Very cool.
Yeah. It really feels like plastic.
To technology.
This is the next generation of computing.
Wow. and the latest in luxury.
What we're doing is world class.
Are you more drawn to the classics?
I'm a classic girl.
I'm Anna Stewart.
And I'm Claire Sebastian. Join us for Marketplace Europe.
Sunday on CNN.
Nothing.
The interim government that replaced Sheikh Hasina has formed a commission to investigate the disappearances. Human rights activist Mohammed Nur Khan is one of its members.
একবার ভাবুন তো একটি মানুষ মাসের পর মাস তাকে হাত পা বাঁধা অবস্থায় একটি জায়গায় রাখা হচ্ছে, পিটানো হয়, ভয়ভীতি প্রদর্শন করা হয়, মাঝে মাঝে কারেন্ট শব্দ হয়। এই ধরনের ভয়াবহ তার সামনে যখন মুখোমুখি আমরা হই তখন আর নিজেদেরকে মানুষের শ্রেণীতে ফেলতে পারি না।
In the days after Sheikh Hasina fled, some of the disappeared were suddenly released. Abdullah Hil Aman Azmi was dumped on a country road on August 7th after 8 terrifying years in the House of Mirrors.
It was 69,794 hours. Unbelievable, tormenting days. I never slept at night. I could never sleep at night. Every night, anxiety, worry, any little sound, I was scared. Are they coming to take me away? Just eagerly waiting for the dawn because they wouldn't take me out at dawn and kill me.
Once a decorated brigadier general in the Bangladesh army, he was dismissed without explanation in 2009, then 7 years later, jailed without charge.
You are not allowed to talk to anybody. Every time just handcuffed, blindfolded, the mask on. The doors and windows are all closed and black painted. I did not see natural light, no sun, no moon, sky, cloud, nothing.
He had once lived in the officers' quarters near Defence Intelligence at Dhaka's main military complex. He eventually worked out he was imprisoned on the same base.
They put me in joint interrogation cell. This cell is in case any armed forces personnel gets involved in any serious crime and which cannot be proved in normal investigation. They are sent there for interrogation, if need be torture, and find out the truth.
His sudden release returned him to his family and the children he last saw as infants.
One was almost 10, another was 11 and a half. I feel so bad that I couldn't see them growing up. The worst thing that has happened is I lost my mother. She was not my mother, she was my best friend in my life.
Many of the disappeared never emerged. Investigator Mohammed Nur Khan fears the fates of hundreds of missing people may never be known.
এবং এখন পর্যন্ত যারা এই ধরনের ঘটনার সাথে যুক্ত তাদের বড় অংশ এখন পর্যন্ত বাকিগুলি এজেন্সিগুলির ভিতর কর্মরত আছে। কারণ আমরা ইতিমধ্যে জেনেছি যে কিছু কিছু কতিপয় মানুষ, কতিপয় সদস্য কিছু মানুষ পরিবারকে ইতিমধ্যে নানাভাবে ভয়ভীতি প্রদর্শন করছে, লোভ দেখাচ্ছে, চুপ থাকতে বলছে।
Despite the alleged attempts at cover-up, he is certain he knows who carried out the abductions. You see their vehicles all over Dhaka. An elite paramilitary force called the Rapid Action Battalion, or RAB.
এখানে খুব স্পষ্ট সাক্ষ্য প্রমাণ পাওয়া যাচ্ছে যে এই কাজের সাথে র্যাপিড অ্যাকশন ব্যাটালিয়ন র্যাব এবং র্যাবের গোয়েন্দা সংস্থা যুক্ত।
The Rapid Action Battalion was set up in 2004 as a counter-terrorism force with training and technical support from the US and Britain. It grew to 12,000 officers, most seconded from the police and armed forces. But it was deployed as a death squad.
ট্রেন লাইনে ফেলে দেওয়া হয় জীবিত অথবা মৃত ব্যক্তিকে, যাতে ট্রেন কাটা পড়ার পর তাদেরকে চিহ্নিত করতে কষ্ট হয়। কাউকে কাউকে ব্রিজের উপরে নিয়ে গুলি করে মারা হয় এবং এটা টার্গেট প্র্যাকটিসও।
The disappearances helped crush the main opposition group, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. In 2018, the regime jailed its leader, Khaleda Zia, on what many called trumped-up charges.
Anyone who opposed Sheikh Hasina would be seen as not only an anti-national or an anti-state element, but a terrorist, and be branded as that. Not only would they be prevented from